Welcome back to Temple Emanu in Orange Village, Ohio. This week we begin the annual reading of the book of Vayikra, the book of Leviticus. The rabbis called this book Torah HaKohanim, the laws of the Kohanim, or the laws of the tribe of Levi, who were the priests and the Levites who operated the sanctuary, the tabernacle, the temporary movable temple in the wilderness, and of course many years later, after King Solomon, the permanent temple in Jerusalem. We finished reading the book of Exodus, the last third of which tells us how to build the tabernacle and gives us some ideas ultimately how to build a permanent sacrificial temple. But this week we start the book of Leviticus, which in the opinion of many is the kind of the owner's manual for the tabernacle. It gives us a taxonomy. It gives us the categorization of the different sacrifices. It goes into great detail on how to make each of these different sacrifices, the purpose of which is evident in the Hebrew word for a sacrifice, which is korban. Korban does not mean sacrifice in the sense of giving something up, but korban comes from the Hebrew word karov, which means to draw closer, to become closer to God. And the purpose of the sacrifices were for us to be, and if I may borrow a Christian sounding, but by no means a exclusively Christian term, communion. It teaches us how to be in communion, in contact with God. If you will, it was our ancestors' telephone line, telegraph line to God, and that's how we connected. Many people look at the book of Leviticus and they cringe. They find it difficult, as you would expect, to relate to a system where the way we are in communion, the way we contact God, the way we make our accounts with God correct is through the sacrifice or the bringing close of animals and stuff, because that's really not the way we've operated for over 2,000 years. But there's another aspect to the book of Leviticus, which is that Leviticus also contains the Holiness Code, chapter 19, which we will read in a few weeks. It also contains many of what we consider to be ethical laws. These are laws from which the rabbis derive Jewish law for business, for personal interactions, medical ethics, the entire panoply of what we would think of in Hebrew as musar, of how we are to comport ourselves, what are we supposed to do while we're in this life, is also included in the book of Leviticus. And many people find it hard to understand how a book which concentrates so much on the ritual also is the book that contains the basis of our ethical requirements. But really there's no mystery here. As Jews, we understand that both the ritual and the ethical are equally important. We know that without ritual, without a systematic prayer service, without a systematic set of holidays, that without that framework, the ethical is not supported. And while people like the Ethical Culture Society believed, or still believe, that ethics can be derived without a religious basis, the truth of the matter is that we've seen many societies where even through reason and logic, you can come to some very horrible conclusions. The basis of all ethics is in the book of Leviticus. The basis of supporting those ethical principles and encouraging us, even through not necessarily rational means, to remember who we are and what our obligations are to God and to each other, comes from the book of Leviticus, where we see the dual importance of ritual as well as our ethical behavior. This week, as we begin reading Leviticus, that's our message. For Jews, it's not one or the other. It's both together in a symbiotic relationship that leads us to become karov, leads us to become closer to God. Have a great week and Shabbat Shalom.